Imagine if we went back in time and gave an NFL team a cheat sheet for the draft, telling them exactly who the best players are in the position they are drafting for the first and second rounds, occasionally giving them a little nudge when it comes to free agency and who they shouldn't let go. What would those teams look like now if they were able to always play the draft perfectly? That's what I'm here to try and answer. So, a couple of days ago, I released a video called What If the Browns Always Drafted Perfectly? And in that video I said, let me know if you want to see this done for some other teams. And I think it's safe to say you wanted to see this done for some other teams. So I thought what I'd do is I'd basically start going down the draft order and doing this for all the teams in the NFL pretty much until we get up to the draft. Now the thing is, the Browns were the perfect team for something like this because they've always had very desirable draft positions, so they've always been able to trade down a couple of spots, pick up some more value. They've been drafting a bunch of players in the first and second rounds and picking them quite early, and that meant there was a lot of players to add. There were a lot of better options in most of those positions, and because of the fact that the Browns pretty much have as many first and second rounders that they've drafted no longer in the NFL as they do on their roster, it means there's a lot of new players and stuff, and it made the team look pretty darn good. That's not true for absolutely every team, and well, the 49ers kind of are one of those other teams. So we go through the first and second rounds, look at what position the team drafted, so defensive end, safety, something like that, and then what position in the round they drafted, and anyone taken after that point they can have instead. And we're going all the way back to 2011, not doing 2016, too early to pass judgment on that draft class. And let's get on with this 49ers team. So at left tackle they would still have Joe Staley, at left guard Zane Beadles, at center Daniel Kilgore, right guard Joshua Garnett, right tackle Trent Brown. You get it, it would just be their original offensive line. They haven't drafted any offensive linemen in the first or second rounds since at least 2011. But there are absolutely no changes here on the offensive line. So we move over to tight end. And in the second round in 2013, the 49ers selected Vance McDonald. And now there are two players that were taken after Vance McDonald in 2013. They go by the name of Travis Kelce and Jordan Reed. Now Vance McDonald isn't bad, but he's also not Travis Kelce, so the tight end for the 49ers in this scenario would be Travis Kelce. Moving down a little bit to the wide receivers. In 2012, with the 30th overall pick, the 49ers selected AJ Jenkins, a wide receiver. Now AJ Jenkins is no longer in the NFL, but he was a bit of a speedster and there's a bunch of guys they could have had. The guy I figure they probably would have liked the most, T.Y. Hilton, but that's not the only options they could have had. They could have also had Alshon Jeffrey, Mohamed Sanu, or Marvin Jones, and now all good players, but I figure T.Y. Hilton is probably the closest match to what they expected from AJ Jenkins. But the other wide receiver positions would just be who they've already got, so Torrey Smith and Jeremy Curley would still be here. Unsurprisingly, their fullback would still be Bruce Miller, and then we come on to the running backs. In 2012, in the second round, the 49ers selected LaMichael James. Now who they could have had instead is Lamar Miller, both of them speedy backs, but that's not it for the running back position. In 2014, in the second round, they drafted Carlos Hyde. Now Carlos Hyde is a good running back, I like him. I like Devontae Freeman a lot more though. So there we have it, that's actually a pretty drastically changed offense right now. We've got the same offensive line, but we've got Travis Kelce, T.Y. Hilton, Devontae Freeman, Lamar Miller, but then comes the quarterback. Now this is a bit of a tricky one. In 2011, in the second round, the 49ers selected Colin Kaepernick. Now Kaepernick really isn't working out for them at the moment, and two players that were taken after him that are working out a bit more. Well, one is an absolute stone cold starter, Andy Dalton. They could have had Andy Dalton, but then there's Tyrod Taylor as well. Now we could pretend Colin Kaepernick's had a 2-year dip, but nobody has a 2-year dip. That just means your career's close to over. I think Andy Dalton, they probably would prefer to have a guy who's been perfectly consistent, has only been getting better year after year. But not to fully discredit Colin Kaepernick, he did go to a Super Bowl with this team. Onto the defense, and it's pretty easy here at the top, it's just the normal roster. In 2013, they drafted Eric Reed with the 18th overall pick, and that was just the correct pick. There is no better safety in the draft after that point. At strong safety, they still have Antoine Bethea, and their linebackers would still be Eli Harold, Navarro Bowman, Gerald Hodges, and Ahmad Brooks, and that's not a bad group, to be honest. So onto the cornerbacks. Now with the 30th overall pick in 2014, the 49ers selected Jimmy Ward, who is a safety. However, they use him as a cornerback, and the safety they could have taken, there really weren't many better than Jimmy Ward, as in Maurice Alexander was probably one of the best ones out of there, but I'm giving them the benefit here of calling Jimmy Ward a cornerback, which means means they could have had Bradley Roby. Their other cornerbacks would still be Tremaine Brock and Rashad Robinson, not really a great looking group here. And then we move on to the defensive line. We start with Glenn Dorsey, who's listed as a nose tackle on their depth chart, but as a left end in Madden, you know how they work. And then we go to 2015, the 17th overall selection, Eric Armstead, defensive end, and they could have had two players here, Danielle Hunter or Trey Flowers, and now I've gone Trey Flowers in this one because of his performance in the Super Bowl, two because I used Danielle Hunter on the Browns team. And, you know, no shots at Eric Armstead, but I would argue these players are better. Now for the right end position, in 2011 with the 7th overall pick, the 49ers selected Aldon Smith. Now Aldon Smith set records for how quickly he reached certain numbers of sacks, but Aldon Smith also no longer plays for the 49ers, whereas everyone I'm about to mention still plays for their original team. Now if Aldon Smith gets reinstated with the Raiders, yeah, that would be great, but here's who they could have had instead. JJ Watt, Robert Quinn, Ryan Kerrigan, Cameron Jordan, Muhammad Wilkerson. Okay, Muhammad Wilkerson's a bit of a different player, but there's a long list of guys that are still on their current teams that have never been suspended that they could have had instead, and headlining that is JJ Watt. And that is the team the 49ers could have had. It actually isn't that different. A different cornerback, a couple of different defensive ends, which I'm sure they wish they had. Especially, I mean, come on, which team wouldn't take JJ Watt? And the offense as well. I think this offense probably would do a little bit better than 2-14. And to be fair to the 49ers, their problem isn't necessarily how they've drafted, it's more just retirements. They were hit so hard by these retirements, it's going to take them a bunch more drafts just to make up for the players they lost that they never expected to lose, and then obviously keep up with the rest of the NFL, who's always adding more talent. That said, they have also drafted 3 safeties in the last 4 years, as well as signing free agent safeties like Antoine Bethea, so who really can say that it's not entirely their fault? But it's a better looking team, although it's not as drastically different looking as that Cleveland Browns team was, which pretty much was just perfect. No new safeties, no new linebackers, only 1 new cornerback, still a problem at nose tackle, and a couple of holes at receiver. All I can do is wish a whole lot of luck to one of my favorite safeties in NFL history, John Lynch. I hope they actually give him enough time to try and turn this roster around.